Ask the Podcast Coach for May 22nd, 2021.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music. That means it's Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the schoolofpodcasting.com, and joining me right over there, the one and only Jim Cullison from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. Good to be back. This is one of those Saturday mornings where I'm like, man, I'm really glad I'm back with you. So welcome back. We're glad you're doing okay.
Yes, rumors. How's that line go? Rumors of my death have been slightly greatly
exaggerated.
Yeah, had something last week. I didn't know if I was having a heart attack. And turns out I wasn't. My heart's fine. My inside's fine. And this is one of those where I like things to make sense. And this one kind of doesn't. But when I think I told the story 2 weeks ago when I climbed through my back window twice because I locked myself out of the house. That problem has been solved. But the first time I kind of fell through the window. Yeah. And somehow that I ended up with my stomach muscles, just every single one of them, just getting ripped over time. And all of a sudden I had a tightness in my chest and a hard time taking a deep breath. And I went, when I say that out loud.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you did the right thing. You took yourself in and you took care of it. And that's the right thing. It's a little bit of a panic when I got the text Saturday morning, I'm having chest pains. I'm going to the hospital. Yeah. I was like, So we're glad you're okay. You did a nice job of kind of keeping everybody up to date, but you said you hear from people when those kinds of things happen, you hear from people you haven't heard from in a long time, right?
Yeah. I had the singer of my country band, which we're talking the early 90s, called me in the waiting room. He's like, and he had a heart attack last month. So you just never know what's going to happen. But
well, you know what's good for that is coffee.
Coffee, absolutely.
Well, maybe not. That's not medical advice, by the way.
But some poor guy's having a heart attack. Get a bunch of caffeine in there.
Jim said drink some coffee.
But yes, that lovely coffee pour is brought to you by the one and only Mark over at podcastbranding.co. If you need artwork, if you need a logo, if you need a whole stinking website, Mark can do all of that. And the beauty of Mark is the fact that he's also an award-winning podcaster. You can find him over at, I can't remember the name of his podcast. That is so bad right now. I'll think of it later. I will, honest. But you can find him at podcastbranding.co. And he is a podcaster, so he understands podcasting, which, man, that's a huge plus, because you're trying to figure out, you're explaining to somebody, it's this audio thing, and it's like, hey, Mark already got that. He understands artwork. And if you're like, I don't even get the whole branding thing, he can help you with that. Resourceful Designer. I knew I would remember it. The Resourceful Designer podcast. And he actually will give you an audit on your podcast. So if you're not sure what's going on, you can start there and then just work through logos, artwork, and a whole website. So check him out, Mark, over at podcastbranding.co. Take me home. I thought I lost it there in the middle. I was like, "Oh man, we're off the rails." I can't remember.
Oh, man, you take a week off.
That's it. We're rusty.
That's the last time I give you a week off, Dave.
Oh, speaking of, if you're rusty, we'll take a slight tangent, but it's true, and this is normal, I guess, is what I'm going for. My church had church last week for the first time in a year. Yeah. Yeah. And that was that was a lovely train wreck. It was fun.
And the more produced it is, the worse it is, right? The more steps you have in it, and the more technology you try to add into it. It's like your podcast. I think it takes a little bit of practice. What you do just in that ad read. Mm-hmm. At the end there, right? That's two separate tracks, right? That's a track playing, and then you switch over to the ending part of it.
Yeah.
Just that piece of getting all of that right is a practiced piece. And if you step away from it for a couple of weeks, or you stop doing it for a while, then you come back to it and you're like, oh, what am I supposed to do here? I don't know. It's like I've been out of the Gallup studio for, I think the last time I was in there was July. And I'm not even sure those computers are going to work. When I go in there, I need to pop in and test them just to make sure. But yeah, when you walk away, you gotta practice a little bit when you come back.
Yeah. And do you want to do some pilot speak since you got your
So the Audio Technica BPHS1, I think it's S-1, maybe something like that. My daughter wants to do some crochet, knitting, Twitch stuff, crafts, basically, right? Craft podcast, or it may not even be a podcast. She may just do streaming stuff, right? So we talked about microphones with her, and I thought about getting her an arm and a Audio Technica ATR 2100 or the Q2U. But it's like, you know what? I want to try this out because this is the ones Ed Sullivan uses on Cigar Authority. And got to use it when I was there. So a pretty good little headset. Couple things, Dave. I mean, one is it needs some EQ, right? I mean, I'm just running this live, and of course, you're kind of missing the bass on it a little bit. I think it sounds a little high, right? Two, I don't like the earpieces that come standard with it. These things are sitting right on my ears. I need a little more padding. Ed gave me a link to Amazon to spend another $20 on the thing to get bigger ear pads. I'm gonna have Sammy try them out, and if she doesn't say anything, I'm not gonna order them. So there's that. I also ordered the M Audio audio device for this to go into.
What is that exactly?
Well, it's basically just a one port audio device, right? So you can plug your
Yep.
Yeah. You can plug your headset in. It's got one XLR and then one you can plug something quarter inch in, and you've got some ability to monitor yourself and some of those kinds of things. This is the ultra cheap way to go. These are $50. So if you don't want to spend a lot of money, you can get it. That sounds not great. The preamps are marginal.
Yeah.
We're going to plug it into that as well. So let's see. Oh, the other thing I don't like, I love the sound. Like I love hearing you in full fidelity. Like that's pretty great because the earbuds, I usually use a pair of earbuds, YURBUDS. They were earbuds that are designed for triathletes. Let ambient sound in. They're great, but they're super light. And if you put cans on, I don't know how you guys do this. Like
really strong neck muscles.
I'm having a headache by the end of the show. Like they're heavy, and the cord too is a big, thick. It kind of reminds me of a power cord as opposed to. So would I do this every week? Probably not. I'll go back to I still got the 2100 that's right there. So, but I thought it'd be a good opportunity to come on, at least talk about it. Dave, don't you think there's some environments? I think of like Cigar Authority where they're moving around. You can easily flip this up and down to smoke a cigar or whatever. What other environments do you think where these would benefit you as opposed to, because I don't think they sound as good as a 20.
Yeah, there's it's not shrill, but there's just a lack of bass. But not
and you
horrible.
Can EQ it out. Like we could run this through some processes, either software or hardware, and EQ it out.
Yeah. I have to say this from my friend John Buchanan. If you have a Jessica Kupferman, and I've seen her do this, Jessica Kupferman, I think she wears headphones, but she's like the worst at keeping near the microphone because she's always she's multitasking. Right. So all of a sudden she's over here and doing this. And then it's like, so when you have a headset on, that might be good for kids. I don't know how, small a head those can fit on, but anybody that's having a hard time keeping in front of the mic, that would be good. And I think the other thing, because like here, I have this big microphone in front of my face. Mm-hmm. So it is somewhat hard for me to forget the fact that I'm recording.
Right.
And I know now those have a decent microphone in your mouth, but I'm thinking it's a little more, you probably have a clear line of sight, I guess.
Right. Yeah, I don't have a microphone in front of me, so like I can see everything. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah, because I know on the Howard Stern show, I don't know what they're using because they sound great, but the same thing. I don't even think they have headphones on, but they have like this little itty bitty like wire in front of their mouth. And the nice thing about that is Howard's trying to get them to feel like it's just a conversation. Right. So anything to get them to forget that this is going out to, in Howard's case, millions of people, the better. So I could see that it be an advantage, but in the end, it's a matter of, if you're comfortable with it or not. If you don't like the sound of your voice in them, that's a problem.
I'd get used to it, and I think I'm already like I'd be like, I wonder what I sound like on the 2100. And I think folks listening, by the end of the show, you won't be able to. Yeah, John nailed that in the chat. By the end of the show, you kind of won't remember that. That sounds flatter, because it's kind of a high. It's kind of high mids and highs, and then it's very flat. And so you just don't get a good, I don't think. Now, again, straight out of the box, there's absolutely zero effects on this thing. Like, I haven't done anything to it. I could, I guess, if I wanted to, and I might here in the future. But from that perspective, Dave, of moving around, I think Craig says that the headset would be great for teaching colleagues who have switched to teaching on Zoom.
Yeah.
And I think, if you're moving around and it's one of those kinds of things, I really do like the increased audio that I get out of this, as far as being able to hear you like I'm hearing you awesome. But I'm not a big fan of the weight as much as, although I probably would get used to that too.
But if you think about it, even if you're sharing if you're a teacher and you're trying to draw something or whatever, I've got this microphone is in my way, and even though I can click and stuff, that might be a great use of that again.
I think so. The arm moves up and down. It'll come right back to where you had it before. Doesn't make a lot of sound when I move that around, right? If I'm moving this up, you're not hearing me necessarily. Yeah. I guess if I did this, you would hear it. But
don't do that. We definitely. What is again the Audio Technica?
Yeah, BPHS1. And I think they're 200 retail. I got these for on I went to the Amazon and said they have other sellers, and I picked it up for 150. And then I kind of thought, those other sellers are sometimes ripe for counterfeits.
Oh yeah.
And so I was talking to somebody about it. They're like, I doubt anybody's counterfeiting Audio Technica.
Yeah.
So they're pretty cheap as it is, right? They're pretty cheap Chinese. Yeah. So about 150 is what I picked them up for.
We have a very important question. Does your arm ever go in your coffee cup?
Go in it?
Yeah.
No.
Like, or I know you
spilled it.
You spilled. Yeah. We've
I've spilled it plenty of times.
We've sacrificed, I think, 2 mixers to the.
I've lost 2 mixers to wine, and then I've had plenty of spots on the desk where the coffee has slid underneath things, and then you move stuff around on the desk, and you're like, oh yeah. So yes, I've sacrificed the coffee a few times for podcasting.
Well, we do have a few people in Clubhouse. I was originally going to do Twitter Spaces this week, and I was like, coming back, let's stick with the somewhat familiar. And if you have a question, feel free to raise your hand. And if you're watching us on YouTube, you can go to askthepodcastcoach.com/join. And that'll jump you right into the video. And if you want to watch us on YouTube, we're at askthepodcastcoach.com/live. And
Craig meant the coffie, the mic.
There
you go. Does that ever go in? No, I don't. Yeah. I don't put my coffee near the arm because just for that reason, because it'll knock it over.
All right. Sure. Well, Uncle Marv is going to jump in here on on YouTube. Uncle Marv, how are you, buddy?
Good morning, gentlemen.
How are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you, Jim. And Dave, you too. Glad you're better.
Me too. Yeah. What can we help you with?
Well, so over the last, I guess, month or so, you had people commenting about using music in podcast, and there was never really a great answer. And outside of saying, contact Gordon, Firemark or whatever. Right. But I wanted to say I've had experience with this, and I thought I could give a little bit of an answer for your listeners. So one of the things is people don't realize how many licenses there are for music, and there's actually 6.
Yeah.
3 of which
they're all cheap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like 99 cents, right?
Yeah, pocket change, right? So there's really 3 that us as podcasters need to worry about. And a lot of it depends on whether you're streaming live, because the most people know about is the master license, which they think is similar to, if I get permission from the artist, that's good enough. No, it's not. No. So you also have to have what's called synchronization rights if you're going to be doing it live on video, and then you have to have a mechanical license to actually play it. Now, the license that's giving us the most grief lately is the public performance license, because that also is now falling into, if you are doing a live podcast, that is a live performance.
Yep.
So now we've entered 4 licenses of the 6 that you need. And I thought that I would play around and try to figure this out. And I went and got a license from ASCAP, because I figured that would be the overall umbrella license, and that would be great.
Marv, how much is that?
Well, for me, it was only $269 a year.
Okay.
And it depends on the number of downloads you have. And obviously, the more you have, the more you have to document how many downloads you've had when you played that music. So the work involved with that is another thing to keep in consideration. But then I decided I'm not going to go after original recordings. I want to go get the karaoke version of all my favorite songs.
Okay.
And there's an organization called Tensi that does the license for that website called Karaoke Music, or Karaoke Version. So if you go to Karaoke Version, you can buy the song, and you can buy an audio version that's sang by a karaoke person. You can buy the instrumental only.
Right.
Or you can buy with background voices, thus the karaoke version. And those licenses aren't very expensive. I mean, it's like $1.69 a song. But to buy the actual license from Tensi, that's $20 per song. And you're licensed to use it for 3 years.
Interesting.
So does that mean you have to pull down at 3 years if you don't renew it? You got to pull down those podcasts?
That I'm not sure about.
Okay.
I think what it is you can't do anything new after 3 years unless you relicense.
Okay.
So that's how I took it.
Right.
Now, I thought it was fine and dandy because I was throwing out stuff and not getting any pushback. But something happened recently on YouTube where all of a sudden I started getting all these copyright claims. And sometimes it was because I didn't have the right information in the podcast, because you have to put in your show notes or on YouTube where people can see it, what the song is, where you got it from, which licenses you're using. And I got to the point where I put my license number and all of that in there.
Right.
But here's what's happening. Once you submit that copyright claim, probably I'd say 90 to 95% of the time, you're good. They'll drop it and you're good to go. But lately, those are getting denied. And it's not YouTube that's doing this. It's all the music organizations that are monitoring the videos. And they have the decision whether or not that they will deny your copyright claim. Now, I took one down. I had to take one down, but it was kind of after the show. So I didn't really care. I just chopped off the end of the show. But I could have fought it, but you have to send in a physical copy of your license. You have to, I mean, it's a lot of work.
Marv, go ahead, Dave.
Well, and isn't that a case where if you challenge the denial and you lose, that is an official strike?
Yes.
Yeah. See that? And you only get 3, I think.
Yeah, only 3. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like baseball.
This kind of goes back to the copyright. We showed this, I don't know, a couple months ago, Dave. I showed how their copyright, they have a section now in YouTube about for these copyright, both for your own, to you to see what other people are using, as well as your own mistakes. And I think what's happening, Marv, is this is highlighted. It made it a lot easier for organizations to see, and they're just categorically denying them. They're just going through bam, bam, deny. Because could you imagine being in that space? How many of those a day you would get in your YouTube? Like if you're a record company, whatever, right? And you have the licenses for this. I just can't imagine the work. So I don't imagine they're listening. I imagine it's a category. They're just saying deny them all, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, I mean, with the boom of podcasts now and the boom of people wanting to be on YouTube and years of just doing whatever they wanted, these companies said, you know what, we're going to flat out deny, because I think what happens is most people don't have the licenses. Most people that are trying to get monetization out of YouTube obviously don't want to lose that monetization. So it's becoming fun.
Well, yeah, I always said you needed permission from the songwriter, which might be Bruno Mars, And then you need the permission from, I think, the performer, which in many cases is not Bruno Mars. And then you get into the things you mentioned, the mechanical license, the syncing license, the blah, blah, blah. And that's just for the US. When you go global, it's like there's a ASCAP BMI for the UK. And that's why I usually just say, yeah, how about no? and it doesn't matter if it's 10 seconds. It doesn't matter if you're not making money or if you are making money. It's just, I wish they would. I'm hoping eventually that's going to be a great day when podcasting becomes so big that the music industry goes, we should probably come up with a way for them to play our music legally. Yeah. That would be great. I just don't think it's anytime soon. So,
Mark, how much do you think you pay a year? Then, if you were to give me a rough estimate, you think of what you're paying to do it, and you're still having problems even though you're paying, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. So I probably average. I would say outside of the ASCAP license, I probably average $400 to $500 a year.
Okay.
But that's going to go down. I'm just at the point now where I'm like, you know what? It's too much work.
Well, and don't you have to report what songs you played?
So I haven't had to report yet, although they say you do. And I did it the first year, and then I didn't know where to report it. Nobody asked for it.
Yeah.
And then I kind of did it halfway the second year until now I'm at the point where, you know what, if I have to do it, I can easily go back through my podcast and count it up. I don't have a ton of downloads. It's not like I'm getting, 10,000, 20,000 downloads. So I think that's one reason why they don't worry about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. What's your show?
So I've got 2 shows. And you can find them at the first one at podnutspro.com. That's a tech show that I do for IT business support. And it's Pod Nuts spelled with a Z. So PODNUTZ pro.com. And then my second podcast is unclemarv.com. The Uncle Marv podcast, just a little personal.
It's great branding, by the way. I love it's really good branding. That's a good. You're coming on Home Gadget Geeks, I think, on the 3rd.
June 3rd,
June 3rd. So we're going to talk a little.
Yep. And then you'll be on one of my shows.
Going to show up over there. So anything else, Marv, you'd add to that discussion around, what kind of advice would you give to, now that you've done all this, what kind of advice would you give to a podcaster wanting to use music?
Yeah. Well, I say first, if you don't need it, don't use it.
Yeah.
Is probably the better thing. If you really want music, go to one of the websites like Pond5 or what is it, Sound. There's a couple out there where they make either royalty-free music or they make music licensing that you can use. Soundtrack Your Brand is another site. And all of the licensing for those songs are contained within that site.
Yeah.
And you can either pay a monthly or yearly fee to use those songs. Audio, I forget where I get my one music.
Audio Jungle?
Well, Audio Jungle is one.
Audio Blocks is another one.
Audio Blocks, yeah, that's where I got my intro and outro music.
Yeah, cool.
But if you get those, then the only license, you don't need to get the ASCAP license or anything else.
Right, self-contained. Those licenses are self-contained.
Yeah. Right.
Awesome.
Read the terms and conditions. Uncle Marv, thank you. Thanks.
All right, guys.
I appreciate it.
Have a good self for the rest of the weekend.
Have a great weekend. Thanks for doing that. You bet. He offered to do that last week, to come in and kind of give an expand. And of course, we didn't. We weren't here last week, but good to hear. Dave, I think it's good to hear from a person who's actually doing it.
Who's trying it? Yeah.
Get
in there and do it. Well, cool. Well, I'm going to ask James over in Clubhouse to come up on the stage. So we'll give him a second. There he is. James, how are you, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Good. What can we help you with?
Well, I've got, like I said to you yesterday, I got many questions. So I thought I'd throw one about you with the business side of podcasting. Obviously, I've been doing it for a couple of years, and I've never really thought about when to kind of take the leap to registering, I guess, as an LLC, or whether I need to be considering it right now. I guess, what are some of those, criteria when it comes to really wanting to consider starting it as a business?
That is a really good question.
It is. It is good.
When do you do that?
The second you make money.
Yeah, I was going to say.
There you go. Yeah.
You can't. I don't think you can start too early on this. This is one of those kinds of things. They take a while to get done. If you think you're going to do any kind of money on this thing, by the way, I'm a hypocrite. I make money, and I haven't done this for Home Gadget Geeks. But I think if you're going to be serious about this, and it varies by location, you probably need to consult a couple people just to make sure you're doing the right thing the only reason you do this is to protect yourself legally. right?
Right.
That's the only reason you do this. So I think if you're in that situation, I consult with some local folks just to kind of, find a person who does these kinds of things, ask some questions. And if it makes sense financially, you do it, I think.
Dave? Yeah, I feel like I hear horror stories about, certain people saying, oh, they got sued by a guest, or, maybe I'm being dramatic, but something happens and they don't have an LLC. And then it's kind of like a responsibility on them to make sure they get things kind of squared away.
But if you had a lot of assets, like if before you started podcasting, you were fairly wealthy, and you can define that however you want, and you want to protect those assets, you create an LLC to protect those assets. Right?
I know a lot of people go through LegalZoom, or there are different places you can go to, kind of take some of the pain out of doing that. So
Sure. Well, thank you guys. I mean, I know, like I said yesterday, I'm kind of still in that kind of fine line between still trying to grow an audience. I think that's going to be like my main goal for now before I start focusing more on the monetization, which of course will be a thing in the near future. But I kind of wanted to check in with you and see, like, when is the official, all right, time to look at this now, time to make it more of a serious thing.
Start now, James, and just figure out what the costs are in your, where are you located? Where do you live?
So I'm out in Kansas City, Missouri. I'm from the UK originally. I moved here a couple of years ago, just to be extra confusing.
Yeah, no. So you're in the US, so that's going to be extra because everything's extra in the US. Although the UK does a pretty good job of being extra too. So let's
True.
not. So yeah, I'd consult some folks locally just to kind of figure out.
Awesome. One of our awesome supporters from gagglepod.com, Kyle Bondo, says an LLC in Virginia is $150 registration fee. You can get an EID, which is kind of like a social security number for your business from the IRS. That's free. He says then you open up a business bank account. Bob's your uncle and you're a business.
Yeah.
So there you go. So
I feel like there's a lot to it too, like in terms of just setting up the LLC as one thing, but then there's going to be so many other intricate questions. And I'm just not clued into any of this at all, in terms of like, oh, what kind of LLC, or should it be an S Corp or whatever they call it? Forgive me, that's the wrong term. But, there's a lot of different parts to it, I guess.
Yeah. Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, Daniel in the chat room says, I ran my business as a sole proprietorship for years, but upgraded to an LLC when he wanted to get more serious. He says having an LLC also makes other business stuff easier, like banking. He said, I already separated my business and personal assets and already reported extra income in my taxes. But it's one of those things. It's the problem that I always worry about is you just never know, especially when you're stating an opinion in a podcast. You never know when someone's going to just go, well, that's it. I'm going to cancel you, buddy. And I'm going to take you for everything. And if you got an LLC, you can you can take all the assets of the business, but
James, are you paying U.S. taxes?
Yes, I am.
Yeah. So when you form an LLC, if you've got a CPA that you also might want to have that conversation as far as the tax ramifications of forming an LLC and what you're doing. It may be different. It may not be time. It may be time. The CPA can really kind of help you then structure, like, how do you take in money and what do you want to do when you do that? And when do you want to buy equipment and how much? A CPA can help with that kind of stuff. So even a couple $100 for some advice on a CPA can save you in that. That's one recommendation I have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's just protection in the long run too. I guess you want to spend the money now versus something
right
happening.
Yeah, and Gary says it's also cool for credit. He says I work at Experian, and separating your personal credit accounts and your businesses, getting those separate are also essential.
Yeah,
and Daniel also chimes in here. He heard that an LLC S Corp only makes sense when you're making more than $120,000 a year, but you can have a single member LLC that functions like a sole proprietorship. So,
okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you almost need to contact a CPA to figure out, because they're going to be the people that are doing your taxes.
That might be the best place to start. Actually, might be
say
CPA.
like here's what I'm doing. What do I want to do here? Because they would know, I think, better the benefits of each one.
Right.
Maybe so.
Right. Okay. And they may know somebody, they may know somebody who can help you do that, or they may be able to do it themselves. I mean, that, a quick consult with a CPA, they may say, now's not the time for you yet. So, but it would be that might be the right place to start and especially if you have a friend who's a CPA and you can get, you get 30 minutes of free consulting along those lines, and tell me you'll use them if they need them, but it'd be a good place to start.
Yeah.
Maybe interview like a CPA as part of my podcast episode, and then say, "Oh, hey, might need some help here." Actually,
that's a great idea.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
I'm writing that down.
Yeah.
Episode 776 of the School of Podcasting.
I wonder if that helped me get lumber any cheaper at this point.
No, that's not.
That's not going to happen.
No, but and James, tell everybody what your show is and where we can find it.
Yeah, so I run the Bros and Blokes Lifestyle Academy. It's a once-a-week show. We talk about fitness, wellness. We do some off-the-beat movie reviews every so often as well. And we are at brosandblokes.com.
Love it.
Jim, guess which one he is, the bro or the bloke?
He's got to be the bloke.
Yeah, exactly.
That is correct, sir. Yep, I am the bloke, and I have a co-host, Callan, who is the bro. So we kind of bring our each unique perspectives to each episode, and it's a lot of fun. We have a good time with it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Anything else we can help you with?
That's the main question I think today. I'll rattle my brain, see if there's anything else I can think of. But thank you guys. This has been really helpful, and I really appreciate everything you do, Dave, and obviously Jim too. So thank you for this.
All right,
Thanks for calling in.
Thanks, James.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, he's a member of the School of Podcasting. So we are being blasted into the Facebook group of the School of Podcasting.
Oh, good.
So.
Good.
But when I love all those people, but you know who else is really awesome?
Yeah, our awesome supporters.
Our awesome supporters, which I got to get this going. There we go.
Thank you.
Yeah, if you go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/store, you can become an awesome supporter. And we're talking about awesome people like currently the teacher's pet, which is, I still kind of giggle because it's about dogs and it's the teacher's pet. But James over at the Dog Podcast Network, dogpodcastnetwork.com, they actually have a contest going on over there. If you, being that you're listening to this, you're a storyteller. And if you have a little pooch there that happens to be involved in the story, you can actually win $5,000. Or if you're off to walk that little pooch around the block, they've got Dog Edition, which is a great podcast all about dogs. And it's kind of designed for people that are walking their dog. And you can find all that over at Dog Podcast Network. If you're a cat person, but you know a dog person, tell the dog person, go over to dogpodcastnetwork.com. And we always thank our $20 supporters like Kim Craggy over at Toastmasters101.net. Ed Sullivan, you mentioned him earlier.
You did. And he gave me a bunch of advice, by the way. I told him, he heard me talking about this thing at the end of Home Gadget Geeks. And I got 3 emails from him, like, try this, do this, here's this. Ed is super helpful. So Ed, thanks for your help on this.
Well, and he's got experience using these headsets. So he's awesome. Yeah. Find him at soniccupcake.com, Max Trescott at aviationnewstalk.com. So if you're a pilot, Jim looks like, can you give something like, people, everyone.
We're coming in for this is your captain speaking. We'd really like you to be a part of our show today. So call in via okay. Well, we'll see you later.
Shane at spybrary.com. If you're into spy stuff, Shane's got you covered. Glenn the Geek Hebert at horseradionetwork.com. If you like horsies, he's got a whole network of horsies, and heard Glenn on another show, and he's just always bringing gold over there. And good guy. Felix over at the Latin Podcast Awards. If you like Latin podcasts, and you go over and contact Felix, it's part of the Dice Network. Greg over at Debt Shepherd. Speaking of somebody, you know what? Maybe I need to talk to Greg.
Oh, there you go.
That's a guy. There you go. Huh? Yeah. Hey, I'll have to reach out to Greg because he teaches financial wellness over at debtshepherd.com. So silly me, I should have thought of that right off the top of my head. Easy for me to say. Indie Podcast Network. You can find them at, did I say Indie Podcast Network? I did not say that. Let's rewind that. That'll be fixed in post. Indie Drop-In Network at indiedropin.com. Remember when I mentioned the big microphone in the way of some things? Indie Drop-In.
Yes.
Indie Drop-In Network. If you have a true crime show, a comedy show, or a scary kind of spooky show, check out indiedropin.com and contact the folks over there because they have an audience that loves that kind of stuff and they're willing to put your episode up in front of their built-in audience. Michael Delaney over at Baby Mountain Radio Productions. You can find him over there. He's a great guy. He's actually in the chat room. And of course, you can see all the other people, the $10 supporters and everyone else at askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. And if you would like to support the show, maybe with a one-time donation or sponsor Jim's mug or whatever you want, you can find everything over at askthepodcastcoach.com/store. So thanks to all our awesome supporters. And
Why does every pilot sound like he's high when he comes on the mic? We're going to be taking off in about 10 minutes. And it's
there's always that.
Like, are you high?
Yeah. Should take, I don't know, 15, 20 minutes, maybe. Got a tailwind.
It's the same guy all the time. I've always noticed that. This is your captain. My name's Jim, and we're going to be here for a while. So
and what gets me is like there are really two people that are going to be on the speaker system. One is some sort of, what is the word here?
Flight
attendant. I was going to say stewardess, and I'm like, that's not right anymore.
Flight
attendant. So I can see the flight attendant. I'm within eye shot. So
they're all quirky now too. They're all quirky. They all have jokes and stuff.
Oh yeah,
they do. Yeah.
Shecky, the flight attendant, is now.
Yeah. And I'll be here. You make sure you buy the veal, right? I'll be here all night. They've got jokes and all kinds of stuff.
And then any other voice when they always come on. Yeah, this is your pilot. Yeah, no kidding. Really? Because it's not Shecky, the flight attendant. So,
oh my gosh, it's just they just crack me up. You can never hear them. They come on here. Like, are we crashing or are we almost there? I don't know because I can't understand them.
I always love the guys that love to wake you up. Like you're finally get to sleep on a plane. Like if you look to the right, you're going to see the and something that you could care less about. And then you actually look to your right and all you see is clouds. You're like, look, I can't, unless you're in the window seat hanging on the wing, you really can't see that. So please quit pointing that out.
It would be cool if they do like a pilot podcast, the whole, like where there was just a channel. Now you can, and sometimes they let you listen to that channel, but wouldn't it be awesome? Because those pilots aren't doing anything. You ever watch them? They're literally just sitting up there turning knobs and dials and stuff. They could be doing a podcast the whole time for the plane. And they could have a topic that they're talking about. And how great would that be?
I bet there probably is something like that. I would think. I'll have to ask Max because he's the pilot guy. Aviation News Talk.
I make it sound like it's easy. It's not. They actually are doing a lot. I mean, it's funny. There's a whole bunch of YouTube videos around showing, they got a camera in the cockpit. It's live. It's unedited. And the amount of checking and rechecking, and they check each other, and once somebody calculates it, and they'll calculate it, and then put it in the computer, and then the other person checks it, and it's this dance that they do. Yeah. And I imagine like having a co-host on a podcast, it gets easier the more you're around. Like if a pilot and a co-pilot fly a lot together, I imagine they start learning each other's tendencies where that kind of goes faster. But it's a well done dance that they do. It's kind of fun to watch. You're like, wow, they're really good at this.
Well, it's got to be one of those cases where you just can't assume, you know what I mean? It's like, we've flown this flight a million times. Nope. You got to check everything. And because the minute you don't, oopsie.
Well, we've talked about this before. I mean, the magic is a checklist, and they checklist everything. Yeah. And I think there's some good for podcasters. I think there's some good lessons to learn, and having your podcast checklist that you they physically go through each time and check it off. Did you press record?
Yeah, that would be, well, there's that, and that'd been too funny if I'd said, oh crap. But things like, send email to guest stating to please be in a quiet room and use the best microphone. And then the one that I forget to do, and I'm always just lucky that my settings haven't changed, but have your guest tap their microphone.
Right.
Because if they do that and you don't hear it, they're coming through, especially if they're having, there you go. Speak of the devil. The one and only Mr. Pilot himself, Max Trescott, just like a podcast.
Oh, wow. Nice.
So, so I've ran into one where their audio was just bad. And I'm like, there's got to be something going on because I can see you have a microphone. I said, can you tap that? And I'm like, and it was coming through their camera. So,
but that's a good check. Like it's a good physical. I always have them when we're doing this at Gallup, and I have a lot of guests. So I'm checking them all the time. I always say, tap your mic. Like I want to hear it just to make sure, and then count to 10. And they think that's the funniest thing because they think I don't know what they think I'm trying to do. I'm like, I just need you to count to 10. And they're like, really? Yeah, just count to 10. And I'm checking for latency, right? I want to make sure there's no drop packets in the middle of that. But they think I'm trying to check them for something else. And it's just hilarious. But that's one of the things I do every time. Tap your mic, count to 10. Works.
Interesting. Yeah. And I always think they get possibly defensive, like you're like, hey, I'm the big podcaster, you're not.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're fine. I just want to make sure you're fine. that whole 9 yards. Uncle Marv says, the checklist is nice. He says, I've been podcasting for 6 years and forgot to press the record on the Rodecaster Pro last week. Had to use the StreamYard audio. We've been there, done that multiple times on the show.
It's one of those things. It's just, I think it makes sense. I am so undisciplined that I can't, I can't.
My problem is, especially if I'm interviewing, and most of the time I'm interviewing somebody I know. I don't do many interviews where I haven't met the person or something. And so I see somebody be like, hey, man, it's been so long. And you just start gabbing. And then you kind of like, all right, well, let's go ahead and start the interview. And because you're just super comfortable, you're not in checklist mode. That's when you look over and you're like, oh, crap, we got to do the first 2 questions again. They're like, why? I'm like, I forgot to press record. Because you're just comfortable. You're not in that kind of professional, now we do this, now we do that.
Dave, I got to apologize to you. So
right.
we've been in Clubhouse now for 50 minutes, not 40. Let's just say I had my microphone on because I went into Clubhouse and I didn't mute myself. But James is out there listening, I think, via Clubhouse. I just muted myself. So you were feeding us in and my mic was coming in.
That had to be.
I can't imagine how bad that sounded. Like that had to be James. I wish you would have told me. Maybe he didn't know.
Yeah.
He's probably listening to the YouTube feed. But it was awful. But we can't hear it. Like this is the thing with Clubhouse. Like we're not monitoring.
I so wish there was a chat function in Clubhouse as well. Because James very patiently waited. There was a time, when I was like, hey, we are going to get to your question. So I kind of felt bad about that. Randy has a question in the chat room here. Do either of you post mortem episodes? Wait, do either of you
postmortem?
Postmortem which is
do postmortem episodes to critique what you think. So in other words, do you go back and re-listen to it and those kinds of things?
Yes, I love to do that. My favorite is I haven't done it in a while. I'm glad he said that. Is I like to go back a year. Like if today's May 22nd, I'll go back to May 2020 or something and listen to that episode because I'm so far away from it and I'll listen to it. And that's where I kind of go, why didn't I do this? Or especially interviews. There are times when I do that, or, I'm just always audio quality, flow. On the School of Podcasting, I'm going to talk about flow in your podcast this week. And, there are different philosophies on that. Some people like on the School of Podcasting, I have a little transition music. Well, if you think about it, that's kind of almost like a bus stop where you're like, hey, if you want to get off here, we're slowing down before we go to our next destination. And then other people just like to just transition. And it just, you keep going. And consequently, in theory, nobody gets off that bus. So I don't know. What do you listen for, Jim? Do you ever do this?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I go back and listen. And actually at work, I have an editor who goes back and edits the transcripts, and he listens to the podcast as he does the transcripts. And he may know me better than I know myself when it comes to this craft. And so he gives me feedback on things I could do better, or way to make transitions easier, or things to think about when I'm doing things. I mean, I'm notoriously bad at names. And so this is something we talk about all the time, of really making sure I know someone's name and the way to pronounce it correctly before I go on the podcast, right?
There's another checklist item.
No, right. I know. You're like, oh, yeah, I know I'm supposed to know you, but now I can't pronounce your name. That's a really bad thing. I'm really bad at that. I'm just going to admit it. So, yeah, I do go back and listen. I haven't been, I used to go back and listen to Ask the Podcast Coach every week. And I'd listen to it on Wednesdays. It was kind of my Wednesday commute in, and I would critique myself and you. And, but I'm not doing that anymore because I don't drive. And so I've stopped. Yeah. I've stopped that opportunity. I need to figure a way to get it back in there.
Yeah.
I do like the word after action. Postmortem, Kyle says postmortem equals after action or lessons learned. In the military, we call those after action reviews, AARs.
And there we go.
I like it. It's a good idea. Yeah. It's hard to do. It's really hard to do.
Yeah. And that's why like I'm subscribed to all of my own shows. So when I wake up on Monday or whatever the day it's supposed to come out, I always look just to make sure it's there. Like that's my way of saying, okay, well, Libsyn is working. That's good. It's here. And so, but I don't always listen I try to put some time between me and when I do, because I listen to it right before I upload it. Like I use Overcast. And one of the reasons I love Overcast is I can upload my file to the Overcast website and it will then download in the Overcast app. And I can listen to it through earbuds. So I can actually listen to it how most of my audience is going to listen to it. And so I do that after I just edit right before I post it. I always do that because that's where you find out that, crap, I had channel 3 muted and there's, 4 minutes of silence in the middle of my podcast or something like that. So I always listen to it right before I post it. But yeah, I try to put some time after it. And it's the other thing that's weird is if you go way back, my voice has changed. Not a ton, but my voice is a little deeper than it used to be. And I'm like, I'm not doing that on purpose. That's just all of a sudden I used to kind of sound like this and now I sound like this. And I'm like,
I think you relax, Dave. I think that's what happens.
That's it.
In the early days, you're a little tense. And as you get better at this, you just kind of relax into it. And I think maybe our voices get deeper as we get older too, a little bit. So I noticed that too. I went back to listen to our very first episode, 10 years ago on Home Gadget Geeks. And I'm like, what am I, 17?
Kyle in the chat room says some of the best podcast review sessions have been at meetups where everyone listens to each other's latest episodes for 5 minutes and then goes around and give impressions. That's cool. Have you played with AirMeet yet?
No.
I was playing with it last night with Ray Ortega. He's like, hey, can you come jump into this thing? And I've been on calls. And it's a little bit, I was on a call with Jason Van Orden, did a thing. It was like this networking event. And there were like, I don't know, 100 people on a Zoom call. And then Jason would go ooga booga behind the scenes and 5 rooms would appear and you would all just go into whatever room it assigned you to, which was cool. Airtable was more like a podcast movement podfest thing where you had tables where you could just walk around if you wanted to. Now, granted, it was me and Ray, but I saw that, and I've been on other events where they actually have a thing called speed networking, where you can just like say, hey, I want to meet somebody, and you put in kind of what you're looking for and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I saw that and I was like, that looks like fun. That's because to me, that's half the fun of podcast movement or podfest is meeting people. I'm like, maybe I need to come up with a way to make, because I've done in the past at the beginning of COVID, when we were all really losing our minds, I used to have podcast happy hour. And it was just a Zoom meeting to almost not talk about podcasting. It was like, hey, guess what? Let's not talk. How would you like to talk to someone over the age of 8, kind of thing. And let's not talk about, math. And that's like, let's just talk about whatever. It was just a place to hang out. And I just had to, they were just schedules and things like that. I quit doing it. But, when I saw this I forget the name of it, AirMeet, something like that.
AirMeet is that. Yeah. And they have plans. I was just looking because I always go right to their plans. They do have a free plan if you want to try it, up to 100 registrants per event, 1 organizer, single tracked events. They have a social lounge, speed networking, chat, event chat. So you can try, if you have less than 100, you can try it for free.
See, that's an interesting, because 100 is one of those things where you go, like, that would be the best problem to have is if you have more than 100 people, because this is one of those things you could send out to a, list of whatever, 1,000 people, and you could get 300 people to sign up, but you're not going to get 300 people to show up.
Right. Hey, well, we did this week on Friday. So I guess just yesterday morning, I did a webinar, webcast is what we call them. And we had 3,000 people register for it, which was pretty great. But guess how many we got live? So 3,000 registered. What do you think the live attendance was? Do some math there.
You said 3,000?
3,000 registered for this event.
Yeah. Let me do 3,000 times my favorite number is 90.
Okay, well, so we're better than that. Did you do 3%? Is that?
Yeah.
So we do a little bit better. We actually do 30% on those.
Nice.
But it was still like 750 was our number. But you still get. I mean, that's we talk about this all the time. Like, oh, I've got all these listeners. If I could just get them on my mailing list and sell them something, you're like, okay, that number in your numbers. I think your 3% number is a little closer to reality than our 30% number. We have a really engaged audience, right?
Well, that's the key.
Yeah. No. So 750 is great though. Dave would have gave me the opportunity to do though is send him an email back because we had him register on Eventbrite. I could send him another email that said, "Hey, thanks for coming. Don't forget here, follow us here," right? Those kinds of things. And then when the thing is produced, I can email him again and say, "Hey, thanks for coming out. This has been edited and there's a transcript available for you." So it gives us some options. We typically get 400 to register. So that's kind of our number, 300 to 400. So 3,000 10 times is pretty significant. We were launching a new product, so folks were kind of interested.
Well, there's a media host that I want to play with that I have zero, but it's have you ever heard of Castos? Craig?
Yes. Yeah.
Craig filled in 1 week when you were out.
Okay.
Really nice guy. And they've made some changes over there. In fact, they just bought Podient or something like that. And I was like, because there's some things over there that are like, that's different. And I was thinking of doing a podcast, and I was going to throw, because again, obviously I have no time for another podcast. That's a dumb idea. But I thought of having people do, like, if I was you, I could say, "Hey, this is Jim Cullison from the averageguy.tv, where we talk about yada, yada, blah, 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 and yip. And my perfect guest would be such and such, who does such and such and such and such. You can find me at the averageguy.tv." And that would be the podcast. And then and it would either be like 3 times a week, once a week, whatever. But every week it's like, and then if you want, and also I would be a great guest for anyone looking to talk about such and such. So here's what I'd be a good guest for. Here's the kind of guest I'm looking for. And I I forget the domain I bought. That's as far as I got. I bought a domain because, that's what I do.
Because you don't have enough domains, Dave.
Yeah. And I was like, well, that would be an easy show. I don't have to create the content. I just have to publish it. I just don't know if anybody would listen to that. It's like if somebody's looking for, because the difference being there are, I think, 18 now different podcast directories of, hey, here's where you can find a guest or a host or whatever. And so there's not a shortage of that, but right. all those, you have to go to those sites to check. And I was like, what if, once a day you got a quick 3-minute podcast that said, hey, here's a potential guest for you. I was like, I might throw that on the wall.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why wouldn't you?
Yeah. So
why why do podcasters have such a domain issue? Like, why do we buy so many domains? Like, every podcaster that I talk to is like, yeah, I've got 17 or I've got 700 in some cases. I was listening to Todd and Rob on the New Media Show, and Todd has a serious domain problem.
Yeah. I think part of it is we're creative people in some cases. And the other one is, so we have so it's always ideas. And because I know half my domains are stuff that I've never acted on, but just in case I want to make sure that domain, oh my gosh, the domain's available. I'm going to buy this now and I'm going to work on it later. And then we never work on it later. I think that's part of it. And then the reason we still have them is, actually, that's still a good idea. I might do that someday. Or there is a part of you that goes, if I let this domain go and somebody else, it's like fear of missing out. You're almost for me, it's like, if I let this go and somebody jumps on this and makes $1 million, I'm going to hate myself. So I'm going to squat on it, even though I'm not doing anything with it.
Not going to do anything, and you're paying. I just can't. I think if I have 10, that's $20 a year. It's $200. That's $200 a year. Yeah, that's just that's hard for me to swallow. Yeah, Kyle's got
108.
I'm telling you, podcasters are the worst at this.
Well, the thing is, I actually signed up for GoDaddy's, what do you call it, auction. I was like, all right, battling bands. I will admit, I'm never doing anything with that. Battlingbands.com. Somebody should buy that. And I'm not asking for, gazillions of dollars. I'm like, GoDaddy's like, that's worth about such and such. And I'm like, all right, well, let's back it down $20 and and I haven't sold a single one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, I don't know what the deal is.
I don't think most people, I just don't think it's a lottery, to get that one that somebody's that's willing to pay for it. And I think there's a general feeling that I shouldn't have to buy, especially if I've stolen someone's brand. Like that, you get really shamed for that one. If you've bought somebody else's brand hoping to sell it back to them, there's a little bit of shame that goes in to that in the industry. So, I don't know.
Yeah, I know.
I have 7, maybe. I think 5 or 7, something like that.
Domains?
Yeah.
That's it?
That's it. That's all I got.
What's wrong with you, man?
Average Guy TV, averageguy.me. And a few others. Yeah.
The one I hate is the .fm. Those are expensive, and it's like I think I own one of those, and every time it goes through, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah, .tv's not cheap. I think it's $30-$40.
Yeah, but going back to I'm getting all my spider senses are tingling now about air meat.
Yeah, I think this is worth trying out, to be honest with you.
Coach Dave says air meat plan is 1,000 free per month, 5 staff, parallel sessions. 100,000 person capacity. That's a lot of people.
You know what we should do, Dave? We should get the free version and do an Ask the Podcast Coach conference thing for a couple hours on a Saturday or Sunday or something, and get a couple speakers. Just try something fun on Air Meet. That, I mean, for free, might as well. Right. It looks kind of cool. Yeah,
it's one of those things where it's like, that looks like fun.
Yeah, no, it does kind of look like fun. I think may be fun to do kind of a keynote type idea where you come in and do some sessions, and I don't know, maybe live or even record it. I don't know. Well, maybe we can talk about it off air and see what we can do with that. It'd be kind of fun.
Yeah, I have Kyle says, I wonder how Air Meet matches up with Hoova. The Hoova app, I know Chris uses that for Podfest, but I need to, every time I jump into the Hoova app, I'm just bombarded, and I'm like, to the point where I literally turn around and run away. And I'm like, and I know there's really cool. I know it's a great networking app. It's just like, I just walk in and it's like, you have 4,337,000 invitations to events from, it's like, I need to go in and go click, mark all as read, something. It's just like, I walk in and I'm like, yeah. And it's like, I turn around and walk out, but I know he's got, Chris is using another site that now is hosting all the videos from Podfest. He's got, I forget the name of that, super something site. But Coach Dave says at one time I bought misspellings of popular sites. So I think that's and route them directly to count traffic or send them to my site. Yeah. People used to do that with affiliate stuff. Oh yeah. You'd buy the misspelling and then point it at your affiliate link and cha-ching. So
yeah. That's kind of gray. Yeah, that's kind of a gray space. I'm not saying it's wrong. Right. I'm not saying it's right. it's a little gray.
Well, and I think that's where, if they wanted to, they could come in and say, like legally, they could say you're. I don't know. That's like you said, it's gray.
No, listen. If you're close to their brand and what you're doing. It's just how much money do you have at that point? Yeah. Like how because if they want to come after you legally, they can. And it's not a matter of right or wrong. It's a matter of, are you willing to hire a lawyer to defend you?
That's it. I got very lucky. I was in a blues band called the Sugar Daddies, and we had the sugardaddies.com. Do not go to sugardaddies.com unless you're over the age of 18. And I got a very official email from the Charms actual piece of mail from the Charms company saying, what is your intention around the phrase sugar daddies, blah, 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 the Charms company, because of the candy. And like, I called them and said, I'm just a local Northeast Ohio blues band. I'm like, please don't sue me. And they're like, okay. Cause it's the whole thing. Yeah. If I was like, oh, I'm starting a candy company, and they're like, nope, sorry. But cause we were a little local Northeast Ohio blues band, they did not sue the pants off us. So I was very happy about that.
Yeah, it's a crazy. You got to be careful. You got to be careful. Don't fly too close to
the sun. Podcast.
Hey, Dave forgot to turn that down. Instead, I turned down Jim.
Oh, that's all right.
Let's try that again. There we go. Nice and quiet behind the scenes. Nobody knows. It'll be edited out later. So awesome. Anyway, Jim, what is coming up on theaverageguy.tv?
Yeah, so I come back and catch up a little bit with Mike Uyghur, and we spend a little time talking about the new vehicle that I bought this week. So I've been talking about Teslas for a while.
No.
So anyways, I'll leave
you bought a Tesla?
Well, I'll leave you in suspense. That show will be posted a little bit later out at theaverageguy.tv.
Did your treadmill show up yet?
The treadmill, we talked about that in the second half of the show. The treadmill is here, Treadly 2, and give a little review on it at the end of the show. So theaverageguy.tv, it'll be posted a little bit later this afternoon.
Oh, there we go. Cool. Awesome. On the School of Podcasting, as I mentioned earlier, nobody gets on a bus unless they know where it's going. So that's why I always tell people at the beginning of the show, you should have something like that at the beginning of the show. But once they're on the bus, how do you keep them on the bus if you want them on the bus, things like that. So we're going to talk about transitions. We're going to talk about flow, things of that nature on the School of Podcasting.com. Thanks to all the awesome people in the chat room. Thanks to everyone who wished me well. I'm glad I'm not dead. I prefer living. And so
we're glad to.
So I'm not dead yet. Right. Thanks to Mark over at podcastbranding.co. Thanks to James at the Dog Podcast Network. If you would like to support the show, we would really appreciate it. Go over to, because Dave's going to need to pay for some hospital bills soon.
Apparently. If you're on Clubhouse, don't leave. We still have 30
Yes,
minutes.
we are still, we're heading towards post show here. But if you go to askthepodcastcoach.com/store, there are all sorts of ways to support the show, as well as support Jim. Jim's link to his Patreon is over there, a bunch of stuff. So askthepodcastcoach.com/store. And we're here every Saturday, 10:30 Eastern Standard Time. If you're new to the show, you can always find us here at askthepodcastcoach.com/live. But as Jim said, stick around. We have some post show right around the corner.